Adolf Hitler is one of the most infamous figures in history, known for his role in the rise of Nazi Germany and the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust. To understand his rise to power, we need to take a closer look at his early life, the circumstances that shaped him, and how he eventually used his charisma and political strategy to become the leader of Germany. While his actions were complex and multifaceted, this overview will aim to break down the basics of his journey in a simplified manner. Hitler was born on April 20, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria-Hungary, which is now part of Austria. His early years were marked by personal tragedy, with his father, Alois Hitler, being a strict and often abusive figure. Alois was a customs official, and the family frequently moved, creating instability in Hitler's early life. His mother, Clara, was a more affectionate figure, and young Adolf seemed to be closer to her. He showed early signs of artistic talent, but his academic performance was unremarkable. He had dreams of becoming an artist, but after being rejected twice by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, he struggled to find a clear path forward. During this time in Vienna, Hitler's political views began to take shape. He was deeply affected by the poverty and social tensions in the city, as well as by the growing nationalism and anti-Semitism that were becoming widespread across Europe. Hitler was exposed to these ideas while living in Vienna, and he started to form a belief in the superiority of the Aryan race and a disdain for Jewish people, a sentiment that would later become central to his ideology. World War I played a pivotal role in shaping Hitler's future. In 1914, at the age of 25, he enlisted in the German army, despite being born in Austria. He served as a soldier in the Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment, and although he never rose above the rank of corporal, he became highly devoted to the German cause. Hitler was wounded twice during the war, once in the leg and later in a gas attack, which temporarily blinded him. The experience of war, combined with the loss of the war by Germany in 1918, had a profound impact on Hitler, fueling his sense of anger and betrayal. Many Germans, including Hitler, blamed the defeat on traitors at home and believed that the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed harsh reparations on Germany, was a humiliating injustice. After the war, Germany was in chaos. The Weimar Republic, which had been established as a new democratic government in 1919, was weak and struggling to maintain order. The country faced extreme economic difficulties, with hyperinflation and unemployment skyrocketing. These conditions provided fertile ground for extremist political movements, including the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party, which Hitler joined in 1919. Initially, the party was small and not well known, but Hitler quickly rose through the ranks, largely due to his powerful speaking ability and radical ideas. Hitler's political skills were soon evident. He was a dynamic speaker who could captivate crowds, tapping into their frustrations and offering simple solutions to Germany's complex problems. He promised to restore Germany to its former glory, end the economic struggles, and return power to the true Germans, whom he believed were the Aryan race. His anti-Semitic views and rhetoric also resonated with many, particularly as Jews were often scapegoated for Germany's economic and social troubles. Hitler's ability to channel the anger and desperation of ordinary Germans helped the Nazi Party gain support. In 1923, Hitler and other members of the Nazi Party attempted to overthrow the Weimar government in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. The coup failed, and Hitler was arrested and sentenced to prison. However, this was not the end of his political career. During his time in prison, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, in which he laid out his ideas for Germany's future, including his belief in the need for Lebensraum, living space, for the German people, his vision of a racially pure society, and his intense hatred for Jews. The book became a key part of Nazi ideology, and helped cement Hitler's place as the party's leader. Upon his release from prison, Hitler focused on rebuilding the Nazi Party and expanding its reach. The political and economic turmoil of the early 1930s played into his hands. The Great Depression had hit Germany hard, and the Weimar government seemed unable to address the growing crises. As unemployment soared and the population grew increasingly disillusioned, Hitler and the Nazis were able to capitalize on the situation. They promised a new future, one in which Germany would be strong again, with a restored sense of national pride. In 1932, the Nazi Party became the largest party in the Reichstag, Germany's parliament. Although Hitler did not have a majority, he used his popularity and the party's strong showing in elections to pressure the German president, Paul von Hindenburg, into appointing him as Chancellor of Germany on January 30, 1933. This was a key turning point. Once in power, Hitler quickly moved to consolidate his authority. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 gave him the pretext to pass the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended civil liberties and allowed the arrest of political opponents. Shortly afterward, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act, which gave Hitler the power to make laws without the approval of the Reichstag, effectively making him a dictator. By the time of his appointment as Chancellor, Hitler had already begun to shape the political landscape of Germany. He was a master of propaganda, able to manipulate public opinion through mass rallies, speeches, and the emerging medium of radio. His rise to power was not sudden, but rather the result of years of carefully cultivated political maneuvering, combined with a deeply troubled Germany that was ready for radical change. Hitler's ability to read the mood of the nation, combined with his ruthless determination and ability to exploit the weaknesses of others, ultimately led him to the top of German politics. Adolf Hitler's rise to power was not just about his ability to become Chancellor of Germany in 1933. It was about his ability to mold the Nazi Party into an instrument of radical change, driven by an ideology that would soon have disastrous consequences for Germany and the entire world. The core of Hitler's ideology was built around extreme nationalism, a belief in the superiority of the Aryan race, and an intense hatred of Jews, which he saw as the primary threat to Germany's future. This ideology resonated with many Germans who were looking for a solution to their country's economic hardship, political instability, and social disarray following World War I. By the time Hitler had secured power, he had already laid the groundwork for the devastating policies that would lead to World War II and the Holocaust. The early years of Hitler's rule were focused on consolidating power. Once he became Chancellor, he moved quickly to eliminate opposition, using both legal and extrajudicial means. One of his first actions was to exploit the Reichstag fire in February 1933, an event that allowed him to push through the Reichstag Fire Decree. This decree suspended key civil liberties, including freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and the right to a fair trial. It gave Hitler the power to arrest and imprison political opponents without due process. He used this authority to target communists, socialists, and any other potential rivals, clearing the way for the Nazi Party to dominate German politics. In March 1933, Hitler pushed through the Enabling Act, which granted him the power to enact laws without the Reichstag's approval. This effectively gave him dictatorial powers. At this point, the Nazi regime began to shape Germany according to Hitler's vision. The Nazis worked to eliminate all political opposition, control the media, and build a totalitarian state where every aspect of life, from education to the arts, was governed by Nazi ideals. The Nazis used propaganda to great effect, with Joseph Goebbels heading the Ministry of Propaganda and using film, radio, and mass rallies to spread their message of Aryan supremacy, national unity, and anti-Semitism. At the heart of Nazi ideology was the idea of racial purity. Hitler and his followers believed that the German people were part of a superior Aryan race, and they viewed Jews, Roma, disabled individuals, and other minorities as subhuman. This belief in racial hierarchy was not just an abstract idea. It translated into brutal policies. One of the first steps was the passage of the Nuremberg Laws in 1935, which stripped Jews of their citizenship and made it illegal for them to marry Germans. These laws were the beginning of the systematic persecution of Jews, which would eventually lead to the Holocaust. Meanwhile, Hitler sought to restore Germany's power on the world stage. His foreign policy was driven by the idea of Lebensraum, living space. He believed that the German people needed more territory to grow and prosper, which meant that other nations, particularly in Eastern Europe, had to be conquered. Hitler's aggressive expansionism was a key factor in the outbreak of World War II. In 1938, Germany annexed Austria in what was called the Anschluss, and later that year, Hitler demanded the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a significant ethnic German population. The Munich Agreement, signed by Britain, France, Italy, and Germany, allowed Hitler to take this territory without any military resistance. This was a major victory for Hitler, but it also revealed the reluctance of other European powers to confront him. By 1939, Hitler's ambitions had reached a critical point. In August of that year, he signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with the Soviet Union, a non-aggression treaty that effectively ensured Germany would not face a two-front war. This agreement cleared the way for Hitler to invade Poland on September 1, 1939, a move that triggered World War II. Within days, Britain and France declared war on Germany, marking the beginning of the largest and most destructive conflict in human history. The war would soon escalate into a global conflict, with Nazi Germany fighting against the Allied powers, including the Soviet Union, the United States, and the British Empire. Hitler's military strategy was focused on blitzkrieg, or lightning war, which relied on fast-moving, coordinated attacks using tanks, airplanes, and infantry. The early years of the war saw rapid German victories across Europe. By 1940, Germany had invaded France, Denmark, Norway, and the Low Countries, and Hitler's forces appeared unstoppable. However, the tide began to turn in 1941, when Hitler made a critical mistake. He launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. This decision stretched German resources thin and opened up a second front that would drain Germany's military strength. Meanwhile, the United States entered the war in December 1941, following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, and began providing critical support to the Allied forces. While the war raged across Europe, Hitler's policies of racial purification and anti-Semitism reached their darkest point. The Nazis implemented the final solution, which aimed at the systematic extermination of the Jewish population. Millions of Jews were rounded up, sent to concentration camps, and killed in gas chambers. The Holocaust remains one of the darkest chapters in human history, and Hitler's role in it is a testament to the destructive power of his ideology. By 1944, the war was clearly turning in favor of the Allies. Germany faced setbacks on all fronts, and Hitler's leadership became increasingly erratic as he faced mounting pressure. The Allies invaded France on D-Day, June 6, 1944, and began pushing German forces back across Europe. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union was advancing from the east, liberating cities like Stalingrad and eventually pushing into Germany itself. In the face of inevitable defeat, Hitler became more isolated and obsessed with his vision of an Aryan empire. On April 30, 1945, as Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler committed suicide in his bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. Germany officially surrendered on May 7, 1945, marking the end of the war in Europe. The consequences of Hitler's actions were catastrophic. World War II resulted in the deaths of an estimated 70 million people, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. The war led to the destruction of much of Europe, the division of Germany, and the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers. Hitler's legacy is one of hatred, violence, and destruction, and his name is forever associated with one of the darkest periods in human history.